Alright, well, do you know what symmetry is, boy? When you put all your pieces on the same squares.
Welcome to Chess Assassin's Chess Training Boot Camp. This is a one-station unit training 22-week program.
Alright, do you know what symmetry is, boy?
Sir, no, sir.
Well, when you put all your pieces on the same squares. Copycat chess is not a good way to play.
Now in this position, you're probably used to seeing black play the knight to f6, but as you get more experience, you're going to learn how to stir things up. For example, knight f6 will allow white to get a favorable version of the Queen's Gambit exchange variation. And from here, after bishop e7, white continues with e3 and with bishop d3 to follow. Now, we've seen this position so many times. A good move is bishop to e7. So even if white does play pawn on c4 takes the pawn on d5 and you follow up with e takes d5, the bishop still can't go to g5 at this point. And this is how you avoid the symmetry. Always looking for new moves and weighing your options. Why? Because there are so many possibilities in a position. Now, following this sequence of moves, bishop g5 is not a problem. Because now we get to challenge the bishop here. Black is ready to castle and already has e6 and d5 played. And we'll follow up with b6 and we'll fianchetto the bishop to b7. The Tartar Cower variation. After the bishop retreats to h4. But what happens if white takes the knight on f6? Always remember that making piece trades helps the player with less space. Since the trade took place early, black gets free development, good development, and achieves equality. Now all black has to do is develop the knight to c6 and develop the bishop to d7 and prepare to castle queenside. This is called flexibility. Now, seeing this, going back to the starting position here, instead of taking the knight, retreats the bishop to h4, and the game continues. This is the start of the Tartar Cower variation. Now, we've seen this position many times. That's why it's good to become familiar with a position so you'll know what you want to avoid.
What can you expect from a solid chess opening? Good central space, free minor piece development, and a minimum of structural weaknesses.
What you are doing, and what you want to allow your opponent to do. Now, in this position, white wants to decrease the scope of black's two bishops, and by exchanging off black's best bishop on b7 is hoping to exploit the slight light square weaknesses on black's queen side. Also, by swinging the rook over to c1, white wants to control the c file. Remember in one of my previous videos that I said that an assassin must know how to defend his own weaknesses in a position, while at the same time creating weaknesses in his opponent's position. Well, black is going to do exactly that. Demonstrate how to defend the light squares. According to chess theory, the light squares are weak in contrast to the dark squares. So queen moves to b7.
The decision-making method you use to evaluate every option one by one and then selecting the best alternative is limited. The sheer number of available moves frequently makes it impossible to evaluate every alternative one by one.
White does follow up with his plan of exploiting black's light squares, but black proves that he's able to defend the light squares, and not only that, but is able to get control of the e file by doubling the rooks on the e file. And whenever you play a game and your opponent gets an advantage in space or material advantage or whatever kind of advantage, then what you want to do is you want to go back and consider your alternatives. Now we're going to go back to White's 14th move. Before White played the bishop to d3 for move 14. Okay, this is now our starting position. Last time White played the bishop to d3 to trade off the light square bishops. Here, another option for white is knight to e5. Now, tempting for white is to play the knight to c6, but that move is not available because of the bishop on e4. And only now does white provoke black to trade the bishops so that the knight can go to c6, forking the queen and the rook. However, the position is very sharp now. Know when a position is tactical. Knight takes e5 cannot be followed up by pawn takes e5 because the rook and the bishop will be hitting d3. So the reply here would be bishop takes e4. But the move that black played was bishop takes bishop on d3, giving white the tempo of playing the knight to c6, and only afterward does white recapture on d3. Okay, we're going to look at one more alternative for white. Instead of playing the bishop to d3 as in the actual game and the knight to e5, white has bishop e2. And that is all I have for now. I'm going to conclude by saying I encourage everyone who comes to my channel, especially those of you who support me by likes, comments, and subscriptions. I encourage you to take notes and go over these lines on your chessboard. Thank you for watching. See you next time.